Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to another episode of Muslims Uncensored with me, Robert Carter, and Roshan. Now, we've been away, there's been a break in the usual schedule of Muslims Uncensored, but we're happy to be back. Last week, perhaps Roshan, you could explain. I can't even remember why I was away. It was
Our studio cameraman.
Yes, I remember now. I remember whose fault it
Our
was.
technician was away.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll blame the technician, which I'm happy to do. But everything
I was
is
ready
good.
to rock and roll.
Yeah,
So
so
are
was
you.
I. Yeah, so
But
was I. But do you know what? Alhamdulillah, we actually did a lot last week. Well, I certainly did.
yeah,
Roshan, you did.
I was ill
You was
most
ill.
of last week.
So
yeah.
I did all the work. I'll take full credit for that, and it was a good week. It was a very, very good week.
Yeah, in
So
terms of news stories, it was.
many of those we'll be discussing today. But before we kick off with some of the other stories, of course, it's the anniversary of the Nakba. Today, in fact, it's the 76th anniversary of the Palestinian Nakba, which is obviously the period in 1948 where hundreds of thousands of Palestinians were evicted from their native homeland by Zionist gangs who, of course, were engaging in the ongoing colonialist project that is Israel. Many people actually consider the Nakba to be an ongoing calamity which continues to this very day. So Roshan, I guess, just react to the Nakba anniversary and the genocide.
Obviously, every May the 15th, we commemorate the Nakba, and brothers and sisters, you should obviously be posting on it on your social media, sharing with friends and family, non-Muslims especially, educating them about what happened. It was up to 1 million people. I mean, I think the accepted estimate is 750,000 to 800,000
Yes.
Palestinians were expelled from their homes during those events in 1948, and about 20,000 were killed. Several massacres took place, Deir Yassin and many others. So it was theft of land and ethnic cleansing. That's what it was, the Nakba. But I think people make the mistake in considering it a historical event in 48, whereas in fact the Nakba is a living reality today, because now we have something like 7 to 8 million Palestinians displaced from their homelands, those from 48 and their descendants, often living in tents in refugee camps in historic Palestine and outside historic Palestine, massive diaspora living in third world conditions, while the Israelis whose land they stole, they stole the Palestinians' land, they're living in first world conditions. And obviously today we can see the displacement of Palestinians in Gaza, going from Gaza City to Khan Yunis, to Deir al-Balah, to Rafah, and then the Israelis start attacking certain areas, and then hundreds of thousands have to be displaced within Gaza itself. And those people living in Gaza today, most of them are refugees from other parts of Palestine. So the Nakba is very much an ongoing reality.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're always hearing about in Western mainstream media about survivors of the Holocaust, descendants of the Holocaust. That's always brought up time and again, even in reference to what's going on in Israel, Palestine right now. But we never ever hear about the Nakba survivors, the descendants of the people who suffered from the original Nakba, the first phase of the Nakba. We never ever hear about it. And I think that's because the Nakba ultimately is the key. It's the key to explaining why things like October the 7th happened, to be honest with you, and they'll never discuss it. I mean, Piers Morgan, for example, how many times he's mentioned the Holocaust, he's discussed the Holocaust during his coverage of what's going on, and especially when he gets called out for being biased and being pro-Israel and being a supporter of Zionism on his show. How many times has he ever mentioned the Nakba personally? His guests have.
Yeah.
His guests have. Yes, I know they have. But him personally bringing up the Nakba, I'd like a count. Someone should count that. Count how many times he's mentioned the Holocaust compared to how many times he's mentioned the Nakba.
This is what the Zionists and their supporters, they want to devoid the whole Palestinian issue of its context. Now they're very happy to put their context in, which is the Holocaust and Israel, but they don't want to talk about the Palestinian context. And that's why we must continue to talk about the history.
That's why the Nakba and talking about it, defending it, keeping the discussion on the Nakba alive is really important, and it falls on us because I we published an article today on the Nakba, the anniversary. Will the BBC Will Sky News, will
Let's see.
Piers Morgan discuss the Nakba? Let's see.
They'll
Maybe
probably sack their presenters who dare do that,
not. Yeah, exactly.
or
They'll
bury
go
them
missing.
bury them under the floorboards.
Yeah, like we've seen elsewhere. Well, let's continue this discussion because some interesting stories have popped up here in the UK related to this. First of all, let's head over to the Chief Rabbi of the UK,
Okay.
who issued some very interesting comments in a speech on another day. It was on Tuesday, I believe, that these comments were made, and that day is celebrated as the birthday of Israel by Zionists. So I'm going to bring up his comment now and see if I can play it out for you. But basically, this is the Chief Rabbi of the UK, who's a British citizen. You know, he represents Judaism here, apparently, making these comments.
And yet, right now, there are so many who are seeking to redefine our Zionism and to use it to attack us. They are using it as a term of abuse, but we shall forever wear it as a badge of honor. And on this Yom Ha'atzmaut, we declare to the world, we are Zionists and we're proud of it. And we're proud of it.
So, I mean, I think many people watching that will be appalled at the fact that there's a genocide going on in Gaza, and Britain's chief rabbi, someone who should be promoting Judaism and Jewish community here in the UK, seems to be offering a strong sign of solidarity towards a foreign apartheid regime, which is currently killing loads of Muslims in Gaza as we speak. And I think that also this guy is someone who many Muslim heads in this country have engaged in interfaith with in the past, possibly even in the future. So massive questions there about how and why there are people in our own community that would find it acceptable to engage in interfaith with an individual who has these beliefs. It's appalling.
Just imagine if a Muslim leader got up on stage and said, "We are ISIS and proud of it." You know, that's literally the equivalent of what he's saying. I mean, Zionism is an ideology which has, as we know through the Nakba, has led to the dispossession of the Palestinian people and their ethnic cleansing, theft of land, etc., etc. And now it is an ideology which is leading to the genocide of the Palestinians in real time, and it's plain for all to see. It's literally, I don't see, I mean, in terms of numbers killed, ISIS probably killed less, to be honest. But whereas Muslims have clearly demarcated themselves from the terrorist ideology of ISIS, it seems as though, unfortunately, too many British Jews haven't. Now, I don't want to make this a thing about Jews and Judaism, because I don't believe that that is not part of, it's not what our religion teaches us to do. You know, we're not against Judaism as a faith, we're against Zionism as a political ideology. But the fact is, we have the chief rabbi of British Jews. Now, he doesn't represent all British Jews, as we know, because we know that so many British Jews are against Zionism. But the fact is, he represents a lot of British Jews. There's no doubt about that. And it saddens me that British Jews are being radicalized by people like him. Leaders, you know, they're literally Jewish youth are being radicalized. And British Jews and Jews worldwide need to demarcate themselves very clearly from the racist apartheid ideology of Zionism, because ultimately that is what is causing, that's the main cause behind anti-Semitism. Literally, the actions of the state of Israel and the Zionist ideology, that is the real reason for anti-Semitism around the world. And, you know, they need to wake up to that. And, you know, it saddens me to see so many British Jews and Jews around the world lauding Zionism. It's like it's literally lauding racism.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that it's very strange. He seems to be conflating Israel and Judaism with Zionism here, which in
That's
itself
what they
is
try and
apparently,
do.
yeah, absolutely. But then if someone else was to do that in another context, they would say it's anti-Semitism. So
Well,
it just seems very strange.
We've met religious Orthodox Jews who know their Torah, and they don't even consider Zionists to be Jews. I mean, they've literally said that to us. I mean, I wouldn't say that because I'm not qualified to say it, but they've literally looked me straight in the eye and said, Zionists are not Jews. They are not Jews, you know, because Judaism is a religion, right? It's not a race or a political ideology. It's a religion. And we know very well, I mean, it'd be interesting to see how many Zionists actually even believe in God. I would say maybe about 50-50.
It's interesting.
Probably.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think
all the founders of Israel, Zionists, or most of them, they didn't even believe in God.
yes.
So this is nothing to do with Judaism.
Interesting. It's really, really interesting, and I think it's just appalling and totally inappropriate. I mean, even if he has those beliefs, to say them publicly during what's going on right now, I mean, it's totally disgusting.
It's a slap in the face of Muslims worldwide and people of conscience. And yeah, as you say, many leaders in our Muslim community, I won't name them, have done interfaith with this guy in the past. Many are probably considering doing it in the future.
They would do it.
I'm sure they have, behind the scenes relations with him as well. And Muslims need to completely boycott Zionists. No excuse. We cannot be seen publicly with Zionists. And if we're going to have conversations with them, they should be confrontational conversations. I'm not talking about violence, obviously, but they should be challenging conversations. They shouldn't be cozy sit-downs or these kind of tea and biscuits interfaith rubbish.
Yeah, absolutely. Now that you say that, it brings us on to the next story, because there's a school here in the UK which we've reported on was also celebrating Israel's birthday as well. It's King David Primary School here, in an area near in Birmingham, and it's a Jewish faith school, but it's a public school. So it's a religious Jewish school, but obviously has attendees of other faiths, other backgrounds as well, including many Muslims. So very interesting to see. King David Primary School has a very strong Muslim attendance, and in some years has actually been speculated that it's Muslim majority school. Now, this school has entered into a dispute with parents over its so-called Zionist ethos. This is something that was shared and explained to me by parents who have engaged in a letter exchange with the school and challenged them on this. And I mean, you can see through the Twitter account of the school, Muslim students waving Israel flags. They fundraise for Israeli charities. They have an Israel flag birthday cake on the day, which they celebrate this year. And they've been celebrating this for many, many years. So this is a Zionist school. And we've heard alleged conversations between staff members saying that they are Zionist and things like that, and that's been brought home by Muslim kids to their parents, who ask them questions like, well, are there bad people in Gaza, because obviously of things they're hearing at the school. So this has now created a massive debate around, well, why were there even Muslim students at the school ever? How did the parents not realize this from the beginning? Surely they did. But there's an ongoing row now. There's an ongoing row, and that some parents have pulled their kids out of the school for good. Others are staying and are sort of putting up a bit of a fight, trying to change the political stance of the school and fighting it on their grounds. But yeah, just tell me your reaction, Roshan. What have you thought about?
I mean, first of all, this is a Five Pillars exclusive, isn't it? So this is your story. Again, this is what I always say to you guys about our audience about Five Pillars, is that we actually bring you the news, right? You'd never have heard of this if it wasn't for us. We're not just copying and pasting and rehashing like so many others do, like everyone else does, let's face it. We're actually breaking stories and bringing you the news. That's what we're all about. So well done, Robert. I hate saying well done, Robert, but yeah, well done, Robert, for bringing us this exclusive, which has got a lot of attention now. I've got two things to say for it. I mean, my initial reaction, I must admit, was, what the hell are Muslim parents sending their kids to a Zionist school for? It's like child abuse. Would you do that? Would you let your kid go to? I mean, I assume that it's a high performing school. I'm guessing it's a deprived area. I'm not sure. Mosley's not that deprived, is it? In Birmingham.
I'm not so familiar with the area.
So obviously, I think we passed through Mosley many times, but we kind of. Yeah, it's like one part of Birmingham.
On our way to Allen Rock.
Yeah, on our way to the kebab shop, we probably went past Mosley. Yeah. Look, I think Muslim parents are sending their kids there because it's a high-performing school, primary school, in terms of SATs and grades. Academically, it looks like a good school. But it's obvious. I mean, I think some of them might have spoken to you, can tell me more, and they say we didn't realize it had a Zionist ethos. We thought it was just a Jewish faith school that was celebrating Jewish faith, which is fine because we send our kids to Catholic schools at times. There's no massive issue with that. I don't buy that because just a cursory look at their Twitter account, you can see that they're celebrating Israel and celebrating Israel's birthday and everything to do with Israel. So I think the parents are blameworthy. They shouldn't be sending their kids to that school, and they should withdraw their kids from that school. So I don't have much sympathy for the parents. I'm sorry, and I don't want to rain on your parade and your story, but I just don't have much sympathy for the parents. On the other hand, they do have a point, because a Jewish faith school shouldn't be celebrating a political ideology. It can celebrate the Jewish faith, but not and Zionism is a political ideology. Israel is a genocidal apartheid state. So just imagine a Muslim school, I don't know, celebrating the Sharia law or the Khilafah. I mean, I have no problem with them doing that, but it would cause an uproar in British society, and it would probably might even go against educational guidelines. So I think this school should not be celebrating Zionism or Israel.
Yeah.
Those are my thoughts. It's your story. What are your thoughts?
Well, we've seen time and again that anyone who even brings a Palestinian badge to school or, anything, like even if they say Free Palestine, something like that, they could get in trouble. They face being penalized somewhere. I mean, who knows? I'm sure you could find a case where someone's been excluded, I think, if I remember back in some cases, for expressing support with Palestine and protesting Israel. So schools always quote, we're not political institutions, we don't bring your politics to school. They always say that. But then when it comes to Ukraine, for example, we've seen many schools fundraising for Ukraine, waving Ukrainian flags, coming in and having a Ukraine flag school dress day and all this type of stuff. Like literally, it's the most political messaging you can ever possibly see. And it's entered everywhere. It's in the sporting arena as well. But yet when it comes to Palestine, it's cancel culture, massive cancel culture. And any kid who actually does break the mold and try to support Palestine, even in the most mild way, gets in big trouble over it. So the fact that this school is basically allowing to do whatever the heck it wants in regards to Zionism, Israel, even at a time when there's a genocide going on, I mean, seriously, how is that allowed? It's so hypocritical, it's so offensive to the senses that it shouldn't be allowed to continue. It probably will, but it just highlights again how we have to invest in ourselves, like you say, and Muslims need to build up their own community and their own institutions, because you just can't. I mean,
did they?
To be fair to the parents, I'll just contextualize this. They do claim that they were surprised by the fact that it had a Zionist ethos, and I think that some of them now are of the opinion where perhaps if they fight this, they'll be able to kind of force a change in the school. And turn it away from politics, but ultimately it's still going to be the same school, isn't it?
There was a walkout yesterday, right?
There was apparently a walkout yesterday. I've seen different figures, but a significant number of students were pulled out of the school. They informed the school as to what the reason was, which was exactly that they feel appalled and don't want their kids there while they're celebrating Israel's birthday. And we'll have to see how the story develops. But ultimately, it's like you say, the parents are kidding themselves a little bit. And I think that now that they know that it's a Zionist school, I mean, they should be mass withdrawing their kids.
I think there are alternatives in the area. They can send their kids elsewhere.
They claim that there are a few alternatives, but again, I mean, this is extreme times to call for extreme measures. We cannot compromise on this issue of Palestine at all in any way, shape or form. And if the school's pushing this message, I'd be worried about my kids, being indoctrinated and radicalized by Zionism. Even Muslim kids are vulnerable to it, because I don't want my kid coming home thinking that Palestinians are evil or that they have no right to the land. This is wrong. I want my kids to go to school and learn facts and the truth, and to learn real history, not some whitewashed colonialist version of what's going on. So let's see how that story develops. This one's another interesting one. There's a Green Party councillor who won in Leeds, Mothin Ali, and he went viral a couple of weeks back after the local elections finished for what I thought was a fantastic victory speech. He gave a fantastic victory speech. Let me play it out now. It's too good not to play it out. Where he basically thanked Allah for his win. He dedicated the win to Palestine as well. And ultimately, I thought he did a very bang-up job. It created quite the right-wing backlash, unfortunately. So he actually ended up facing quite a bit of harassment over it. Let's play out now and see exactly what he said.
3 years ago, we started this campaign. I started alone. and Allah sent his angels to come and assist me. For the community of Hales and Gibson, who are fed up of being let down by the Labour Council, who have been fed up of being taken for granted, who have been fed up of being taken for granted, who have been fed up of being neglected by this rotten council, who are fed up. Look at the language you're using. Back off. Don't use this as a win for the people of Hales and Gibson. This is a win for the people of Gaza who have been neglected. We will not be silent. We will raise the voice of Gaza. We will raise the voice of Palestine. Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar!
That's the kind of victory speech I would have thought I would like to have made if I had won.
When I become London mayor, that's my speech.
I'm going to quote his speech word for word almost. It was brilliant. He was thanking Allah for sending down angels to assist him in his win and all sorts of stuff. So I looked at that and I was like, mashallah, what a brilliant win. Like, this guy is brilliant. He's exactly the kind of guy we need in office. It's a shame he wasn't elected to Parliament, because I would have loved to have seen him talk along those lines when addressing the Prime Minister. But unfortunately, I was left very bitterly disappointed in Mothin, I have to say. He obviously, he was the victim of a right-wing backlash. Yeah. Everyone was piling in, slamming him as being some kind of Islamist taking over Britain and dedicating his win to Palestine with some outrage. And then it turned out, after an article was published by pro-Israel press, that he had also made some comments on and following October the 7th, where he had said things along the lines of, and I will quote it here, apparently on October the 7th, he wrote on Twitter saying, white supremacist European settler colonialism must end. He then went on in a video speech after October the 7th to say that indigenous people have the right to fight back. They are not the victims. They are occupiers. They are colonialists. They are European colonialists. It's one of the last European colonies in the world, and that's why European people don't want to let it go. They use the weapon of anti-Semitism so effectively that anyone who criticizes Israel is labeled anti-Semitic. And because of those comments, it seems like the Green Party, who he belongs to, may have pressured him to apologize. He has apologized in a statement released on the Green Party website for these comments. Totally apologized, totally distanced himself from them, and has now basically gone off the grid. He's all his social media is basically gone.
I did see him on Facebook. He's
on Facebook.
He's blogging his induction as a councillor or something. Yeah.
He's on Facebook, but you can't comment. You can't message him directly. They've basically told him to just kind of go off the grid, apart from Facebook. So, you know, he's not speaking to the press. I think even the Green Party statement said, look, we're not interested in speaking about this anymore. So they forced him to go underground. Now, my question is, why? Did he do anything wrong? What's your opinion, Roshan?
No, I mean, it's a shame that people have to apologise for just saying the truth. I mean, you know, white settler colonialism does have to end, and, you know, he didn't say anything wrong. But obviously this is, when you join parties like the Green Party, they have a code of conduct, haven't they? And they have an audience which we don't have. I mean, I don't care what, you know, right-wing, you know, non-Muslims have to say, quite frankly, but maybe the Green Party does. I don't care what the mainstream media says about me, but obviously the Green Party, they're fighting an election campaign around the country, so they probably do. I mean, I personally don't see how any Muslim can join parties like the Green Party, and you just look at their constitution and what they stand for. I don't see how a Muslim can get on board on that. I mean, there's certainly certain good things the Green Party do and good positions that they take, and we can judge that on a case-by-case basis. But to be a candidate for the Green Party, obviously you're gonna curtail your Islam, and you're gonna have to make grovelling apologies like that when you really don't have to, or you really shouldn't be doing that. So those are my thoughts. I mean, I've got nothing against the brother, but you know, why any Muslim would join the Green Party is beyond me.
I just think that you know, everything he said is something that we might say on this show. You know, it's like when I saw the article, I thought maybe he literally praised like a banned group or something like that, but he didn't.
No,
particularly.
No, he didn't.
He just expressed very strong support for the Palestinian cause.
Yeah,
and he's a religious Muslim, so he was thanking Allah for his win and stuff like that. He was getting slammed for all of this, and I just think like, okay, he's part of the Green Party. The Green Party might have felt a need to get an apology out of him to try and, you know, get rid of the backlash. But I think I would have liked to have seen some bravery, because you could tell from the way he celebrated his win that he should have gone, no, I'm not apologising for this.
If the Green Party...
I'm not apologising for who I am. A Muslim who supports Palestine. No.
If the Green Party want to discipline him, then
Goodbye to the Muslim vote.
it's their loss.
Yeah.
Because I tell you what, we will be campaigning really hard to make sure that no one votes Green.
Yeah,
so this
absolutely.
is just a message from me to you, whoever the leader of the Green Party is.
As the guys who won't go
you
away
with your pink
Rochdale.
hair, whoever you are with your pink hair and your green hair in the Green Party, like, you mess with Muslims, you ain't going to get any of our votes.
Absolutely. I mean, it is a reminder just how dodgy the Greens are, because many Muslims do look to the Greens like as an opportunity to ditch Labour.
Yeah.
So when it came to the London mayoral election, for example, there weren't really any obvious, clear candidates to vote for as Muslims, like independent, strong Muslim candidates or whatever. So people were like, well, should we go to the Greens? Should we not vote at all? What was the answer? And a lot of Muslims were like, yeah, the Greens are the option. But I mean, I look at this and I think the Greens are the worst option after Labour.
What are their
after
policies,
the
apart from hugging trees and wearing slippers?
I actually like them for that. I'm a bit of a tree guy myself. But
what are their policies?
Well, they're obviously, you know...
pro-LGBT and...
They are, but they have got some pro-Palestine sentiment. Like, for example, I believe that they do stand for calling for an absolute ceasefire and things like that. So on those issues... they would be appealing to Muslims, and that's why some Muslims are interested in the Greens. But I mean, if you just look at this, I mean, the guy was made to apologise, or felt the need to apologise, because he was a Muslim, and he obviously won them that council seat based on a very
strong Muslim vote. Yeah,
Muslim vote. I mean, yeah, just look at his team around him; they were all trying.
I think we should have good relations with the Green Party, and kind of, but from a distance. We shouldn't get too involved with them. Because obviously they're on a different manhaj, they're on a different path to us, quite radically different path. So we shouldn't be, deluded and think we can change their path. If we get in with them, we'll become like them. So I think just have a healthy distance, and just have the odd coffee with them. They can be over there, we can be over here. A barrier in between.
If they agree to wear a burqa or something, then we'll meet them.
Yeah.
But basically, the question still remains: is if you find yourself in a place where, for example, there's a Muslim Labour MP who is actually expressing support for Palestine, for example, like Absana Begum. She's been to many pro-Palestine rallies and has been on stage calling for a ceasefire, condemning the government, being pro-Palestine. But she's still part of the Labour Party. There are other examples as well. Should we be voting for them?
No.
Okay.
I think I would make an exception with. I am generally an open-minded person, and I do believe sometimes tactical voting is necessary. But I think with Labour in particular, because Muslims are so addicted to Labour, and there's such a strong case to be sending out a clear, transparent message, direct message to Labour. I think I make an exception in their point of view, and I think that we should completely go cold turkey on Labour. And that means, I wouldn't necessarily go out of my way to put someone against Absana Begum or Zara Sultana and, put loads of resources into taking them out. But I would not encourage Muslims to vote for them. I don't think we should vote for them. I think we should have a clear message here. This is where we fell with Sadiq Khan, where Muslims ridiculously voted for Sadiq Khan. Keir Starmer's laughing at Muslims. Sadiq Khan, they're laughing at Muslims. What's the first thing he did after, what did he do? Did he go to some kind of gay rally or something like that after winning the? No, he tweeted a picture of himself at Pride after winning, after getting all those Muslim votes. That's what he did. And I think a few days afterwards, he might have gone, I'm not sure if he was sick or not, but he might have gone to a pro-Zionist rally or something like that, or a commemoration of the Holocaust. Something like that happened anyway. So, literally, I think we've got to go completely cold turkey with Labour. It's got to be a clear message. We've got to send a clear message out to Labour. Because if you vote for Sadiq Khan, all right, what you're doing is empowering the Labour Party at a national level and empowering Keir Starmer. That's what you're doing. And the fact is, can I go on to Sadiq Khan now? I know we were gonna.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
no, absolutely.
It's just that I think loads of Muslims did vote for Sadiq Khan to return him into power. I think there was a significant drop off, but the fact is that most Muslims that did vote voted for Sadiq Khan based on the lesser of two evils argument, which I absolutely hate. But the fact is that the London mayor, his or her powers are curtailed. They can't ban demonstrations. They can't deport us. They can't do much apart from, set a policing budget and maybe do a little bit of work on housing. But their powers are severely curtailed. All right. The real power in London is the central government, which will be, unfortunately, Labour, in a few months' time. So the very idea of the lesser of two evils doesn't even come into play in this circumstances, because if Susan Hall had won, yeah, the rhetoric would have been more against Muslims. Maybe we wouldn't have those Eid lights. Maybe we won't have Eid in the park anymore. But the sky would not have fallen in if Susan Hall had won that election. And all we did was empower the Labour Party, who are absolutely laughing at us, and Sadiq Khan absolutely laughing at us. Again, Muslims, when it comes to being put into a corner, what do? They vote Labour again, again, and again. And the same lesser of two evils arguments are going to be made at the general election. We need to go cold turkey on this party of genocide, which relies on our votes. That is the only way we are going to be taken seriously as a lobby. And yes, in the short term, that might mean that a few bad candidates get in. Maybe the Tories get in left, right, and centre, or in a few areas. But we're looking at this long term. And long term, it's about sending a message out and becoming a powerful lobby. And we aren't going to become that lobby if every time we're put into a corner, we go back to the Labour Party.
I mean, the way I see it is we've got to start thinking of ourselves as kind of like anarchists, to be honest with you. I don't even know if we're allowed to identify as that, but you know, just we need to cause trouble, throw a spanner in the works, politically speaking. You know, I would actually in some cases believe that maybe just scuppering your vote and not voting at all and just boycotting the vote in certain areas may actually be the best strategy. I've heard some people say, no, you've got to use your vote somewhere and do something. You can't just. But if we had a mass scuppering of the votes on a day where there were no candidates, at least the Muslim vote in that area would show statistically that there was a rebellion. You know, it might be less meaningful than in an area where we can actually get someone elected who is quite powerful, like Liam Mohammed, potentially a Palestinian hijabi sister in parliament as an independent unseating, where streeting would be fantastic. But, you know, we've just got to, just what would be the best way to rebel in your own way? And some ways we may have to be humble and say, well, we're not going to achieve very much here, but just the most rebellious way you can be, you know, without resorting to armed rebellion, would I think that's the mindset we should be in going into the general election. Just how can we upset the system as much as we possibly can on this? And some ways it might just be doing nothing, just going in and writing "Free Palestine" on your vote instead of ticking
Our
the box.
focus should be entirely on Labour and punishing Labour.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones that rely on our vote. The Tories don't care about our vote, you know.
Yeah.
And they never have. So it's all about hurting Labour as badly as possible and getting Muslims addicted off this addiction to Labour. You know? And they're still addicted to Labour. And it's all about having access. You know, especially kind of the I don't want to say the elders, because the elders have done a lot for our community, but certain elders in our community, you know, they've grown up with the Labour Party. They have access to the Labour Party, perhaps access to funding and this and that. And they're the ones that keep on pushing this. I think the younger generation, you know, a bit more worldly wise when it comes to the Labour Party. So I can see the trajectory clearly, but I want to accelerate this. I don't want to get into a position where it gets to general election and we're voting for Labour candidates, even if it is Zara Sultana or Absana Begum, or even pro-Palestine ones.
Yeah.
They need to resign from the party, become independent. We'll vote for you, but as long as you stay within Labour and you're empowering the Labour Party at a national level, then we are not going to vote for you. That should be our message.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, another tactic which many people are using to create support for Palestine and to punish the system is to boycott. So there are many types of boycotts going around. There's the BDS, very famous ones. There's a boycott on McDonald's. But now the latest target of the pro-Palestine boycott is PureGym. And there's a reason for that. The CEO of PureGym, Humphrey Cobbold, went on Question Time recently, and he expressed support for Israel. Let's play out the clip now and see exactly what he said.
To go through. As I stand at the moment, I think we should support, in general, the Israeli government in being able to defend themselves against. Remember, Hamas is a prescribed terrorist organization that has insisted on deciding to eradicate Jews and eradicate Israel. And we've got to remember that when we deal with this. And that's absolutely not the fault of the Palestinian people in general. They deserve more protection than they're getting. I agree with that. We must remember those facts.
Woman there, and yes, in the corner there.
I agree with that. We must remember those facts.
We should support the Israeli government in being able to defend themselves. That's what sparked the calls for a boycott. It seems to be gaining momentum. Several branches of PureGym have actually been graffitied with pro-Palestine graffiti in London, I think, and there's been so many viral videos of Muslims basically saying, "I've cancelled my membership, cancel yours as well." It's really picking up wind now. What do you make of it, Roshan?
Well, just picking up on what he said that Hamas have vowed to eradicate Jews. That's not true. We know that's not true. That is just pure Western Zionist propaganda and Hasbro, quite frankly. Hamas have never said that. Just to correct him there. I think it's a good campaign to get behind, because I think some campaigns can be a bit divisive, but this one I think we can all unite on. I think a lot of Muslims are members of PureGym because they offer quite good rates, don't they? It's like 15 quid a month or something to join them. Yeah. So obviously our community is a poorer community in this country, socioeconomically disadvantaged compared to the rest of the community. So we like to get a good deal, But I think, from what I've seen online, thousands of people have already cancelled their memberships. And I think it'd be interesting to see the next financial results of PureGym, because I think they literally would have lost millions of pounds in subscriptions from what this guy said. What a stupid thing to say on Question. Why did they even let him go on Question Time?
Weird,
even if he had those views, he could have just kept them to himself and no one would have known any better. But he's like, literally come out in support of Israel. And we're gonna draw the obvious conclusions and use our financial power to support other gyms, either to go running in the park and to lift weights at home,
exactly,
or support your other gyms. And there might be Muslim-owned gyms, or there might be non-Muslim-owned gyms that aren't Zionists. Go and support them and put your money with them. But I think it's a good campaign to get around. I think Muslims need to educate. There's pure gyms all over the place. I'd like to see Muslims outside PureGym, maybe handing out leaflets and educating Muslims and non-Muslims about what PureGym is.
Yeah,
and they haven't clarified as well. I asked them for a clarification. They've not come out with any kind of statement clarifying. So obviously they're sticking with their guns. They're not denying the fact that they're Zionist, etc., etc. So fine, if you want to be a Zionist gym, fair enough, but Muslims will draw the obvious conclusions and they will go elsewhere.
That's the thing about boycotts, is you have to pick your targets well. I think there are people that expect you to sort of boycott everything in the world.
It's very difficult.
And it's very, very difficult. But if you pick your targets really well, and as was the case with PureGym, it seems like they will be heavily affected by a mass Muslim boycott because of the type of customer base that they have. That's a fantastic campaign to get behind. The McDonald's one seemed to be really successful here in the UK, especially.
Starbucks.
They even commented on it. They tried to distance themselves from their pro-Israel position or whatever they seem to have allegedly. And again, Starbucks, we've seen them crash economically in some cases allegedly as well. So yeah, pick your targets. I think that's the best rule from that. And let's see how this one develops. EuroVision, another competition which has faced calls for a boycott over the participation of Israel's candidate. EuroVision took place in Sweden this year, I believe it was, and there were massive pro-Palestine protests taking place outside the venue and in Malmo and other cities in the country. EuroVision is not something which I particularly watch on a yearly basis, whether Israel was in it or not. I'm not particularly interested. So Roshan, I'll go to you. I'm sure you're a EuroVision fan.
As a kid,
Israel didn't win it, so I'm glad about that. But
as a kid, I used to watch the voting. I didn't used to watch the performance. I was never into the performances, but for some reason I was into the voting. And it was always like political voting. Like Turkey would vote against Israel, Israel would vote against Turkey, that kind of stuff. It was never based on the song and the performance. But this is the first time in probably about 30 years that I actually watched the voting, not the performance. I did watch some of the performances just out of curiosity. What a freak show. I mean, what a freak show. These people, I mean, if anyone wanted proof of the decline, the terminal decline of Western civilization, it's EuroVision. It's literally, we're in the last days of Rome. If these people are the decadence, the absolute kind of weirdos, bunch of weirdos and freaks. I mean, literally, they should be in some kind of zoo, and you like just watch them and kind of just be from behind bars and just think this is just a freak show. This is an absolute freak show. And in a way, I wasn't too bothered if Israel won it, because they would have been the biggest freak in a freak show, But anyway, they didn't win it. But what I think they did do is rig the public vote, because the juries, the experts on music, you know, if you can call that music, they actually voted against Israel and they got very few votes. But when it came to the public vote, you got nations like Ireland, which is a pro-Palestine nation, voting for Israel. You got the UK, which is a split nation on this issue, voting 100% for Israel. Now, what I think has happened is there's been an organized campaign by Zionists to rig the vote, to jam the phone lines, to vote for Israel, to give a misleading impression of what different countries think. But then you get idiots like Elon Levy claiming that this is the silent majority of the European nations support Israel. This is proof. I mean, first of all, only weirdos would pick up a phone and vote in EuroVision. Only complete weirdos and freaks would do that.
No, absolutely.
You know, and we have public opinion surveys done, you know, kind of authenticated ones that prove that Israel is becoming more and more unpopular, even within Western nations.
Yes.
You know, let alone the rest of the world, where it's an absolute pariah. So we know that the EuroVision, you know, vote means nothing anyway. But despite that, these desperate Zionists who are looking for any kind of validation, they actually they actually tried to rig a public vote. How pathetic these people are.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's like you say, it's just who would want to win that freak show anyway? I mean, it just show basically
A freak.
Yeah, absolutely. What Eurovision is, as far as I'm concerned, is it's a politicized Western competition of white colonialist nations. I know there are a few exceptions.
They banned Russia a few years ago, didn't they?
Yeah, they banned Russia. So it's totally politicized. It's just a political Western game show. You know, that's all I see it as. I think Australia are in it. And it's
No, I don't think so. No.
Are you sure?
No.
I thought they were. Maybe.
Antarctica are in it though.
Antarctica, okay.
No, that's a joke.
White.
Yeah,
I just find it.
Who's going to perform like penguins?
I really just don't know about Eurovision, to be honest. So it's not the strongest topic, but I have to say that it's just like if Israel did win it, it would make sense because it's a colonialist competition, right? It's a competition of colonialists mostly. So yeah, just who cares about Eurovision apart from Zionists and?
Well, I should say one thing. Greta Thunberg, you know Greta Thunberg.
Yeah, she was outside protesting.
I always used to dislike Greta Thunberg simply because I felt that she was a bit like Malala. She was getting too much mainstream media attention and amplification. But I must admit, I've become a bit of a fan because she's pro-Palestine. She's sticking her neck out on this issue, and suddenly the mainstream media are demonizing her and aren't so interested in her as they were before. Surprise, surprise.
Australia were in the Eurovision Song Contest.
Oh, you had to Google that. You want to prove yourself right.
I knew I was right, but I thought, let me just double check that.
Were they? How come?
I don't know. I don't care.
Maybe there's.
They were in it. I'm just going to go with the line.
I think we should do a 5 pillars article on this.
Well,
why is Australia?
They're descendants of colonialists, so that was going to be my point.
Maybe it's like the UN Security Council. They have guests every now and again. Yeah, and
yeah, any colonialist country can come in, I guess, because they do the same crimes as Zionists, don't they? Just historically. But yeah, anyway, let's carry on now. The next one, this is really interesting. So the coconut banner controversy. So I'll have to leave this to you because it's inappropriate for me to mention the word either way, I think. But it seems as if the word coconut is banned in some circumstances. That's what's at stake here. That's what's at stake here. A woman used it at a pro-Palestine rally to depict Rishi Sunak and Suella Braverman as being coconuts, but that's got her in serious trouble with the law. Basically, been harassed by police, she says. She's also lost her job over it.
That's crazy.
She's facing a day in court for the alleged crime, of holding this sign up and using this phrase. So we're going to see how it goes, but ultimately, can we use this word is the question, and is it considered a hate crime to use it, or just you tell me about it, because I know in the past you've defended the use of the phrase.
Well, it's our language. We use it all the time. Ethnic communities use it all the time to describe each other as sellouts, as native informants. It's our language. I don't see why a white majority or the authorities in this country should police our language. That's the first point I want to make. It's not illegal, but there is intimidation going on. I hope she fights this case. I think she'll probably win it because I think it's a police overstretch, police overreach. They shouldn't have brought this case. I think we need to interview this lady because I mean, she was a teacher, right? And she's lost her job as a teacher. She needs to sue the school.
My name is Muriha Hussain, and on the 11th of November, I participated in a pro-Palestine demonstration in London. I had a placard with me depicting Rishi Sunak and Suella Braverman as coconuts. A far-right pro-Zionist Twitter page uploaded my picture, and within 6 minutes, it was commented on by the Metropolitan Police saying that they were looking for me. Since then, I have lost my job. I have been subjected to an abusive police interview. I've been harassed by the police in the middle of the night. I've had to leave home. I've had to leave my children behind. I've had to pull my son out of school for a short period of time. I'm currently 4, almost 5 months pregnant, and I'm still in limbo on whether I will be charged or whether this case will be dropped. 6 months down the line, we have over 40,000 people killed in Gaza, and the focus is on my placard and criminalizing people like me. I asked the CPS to drop the case against me. There is no hate crime being committed. The real hate crime was being committed against the Palestinian people. Palestinians need us more now than ever. They need our voices and they need our placards. Free Palestine.
She needs to fight this very hard. We cannot let, a white majority police our language as ethnic minorities. As simple as that.
So she hasn't been charged yet,
no.
but she might be.
I don't think she will be charged. I think if it'd be a waste of public resources to charge her and bring this case against her, because I'm almost 100% sure they'll lose. So I'm pretty sure that no charges will be brought against her.
It is interesting, but it's just, again, it brings up this whole cancel culture debate that we live in, because the left and the right always whinge and moan about it, like, oh, we're the biggest victims of it and so on and so forth. But again, it actually falls on Muslims who are the biggest victims of it. I mean, the fact is she's a brown lady, and she can't use the language.
The only people that are upset about using this term coconut are right-wing white people and coconuts and native informants, people that have sold out their own community, people who want to be white, they're brown and black, but they want to be white. Those are the peoples, and unfortunately some of them are in positions of power, like Rishi Sunak, like Suella Braverman in the past. So they're the ones, bringing this attention on this issue.
It's just scary how the police can become so politicized that they will actually go hunting for ordinary people for expressing an opinion in this country because they're pro-Palestine, they're Muslim. It's just, how can the police allow themselves to be compromised in that way?
Well, they're under huge pressure,
scary.
aren't they? I mean, the police, since the beginning of the pro-Palestine, the mass pro-Palestine demonstrations, they've been under huge pressure from political authorities, especially the Home Secretary, the former Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, the Tory government in particular, and the right-wing media. They've been under huge pressure to to ban these demonstrations, consider them anti-Semitic. So I think the police are thinking, right, we're not gonna ban the demonstrations, but we are going to go after a few low-hanging fruit. And unfortunately, it seems like this lady, Muriha Hussain, is one of the victims of that.
So basically, British citizens have to pay the price for expressing their right to free speech and engaging in the democratic process in this country, their democratic rights, in order to please a foreign apartheid regime. I mean, how pathetic. Where is Britain's self-respect? Apparently, they ruled the waves at one point. This is what we always hear: is, "Oh, we're a great nation," and
they're a puppet.
It's great
puppet
Britain.
of Zionists,
and they're a puppet of Zionists. I can't believe it. It's a total disgrace, and it's really appalling. It's just totally appalling, even from like a British nationalist perspective. They're just subservient to Tel Aviv. That's how it feels. Let's go on to Dilly Hussein's podcast, Blood Brothers podcast. His recent interview with Jayda, another right-wing interview.
Dilly loves his right-wing interviews.
He does, yeah. It's become quite a right-wing platform at the moment. But there is a reason behind it. This particular interview was fascinating. I haven't watched all of it, so I'll have to defer to you on this. But it has been well received, I think. That's why I checked in the comments. So just tell me about...
Well, I watched the whole 3 hours, even before it went public, because I just had to review it, etc. Yeah, it was... again, I think, 5 pillars, we offer you guys a lot. Be grateful. We offer you loads, where else would you see an interview like this? Jayda Fransen of the mosque invasions talking to Dilly Hussain, the Islamist Dilly Hussain. Look, I think it's Dilly's best engagement with the far right so far, because I think the others were very interesting. But Mark Collett, Nick Griffin, and who was the other one? Jim Dowson. But they all came, I felt, with an agenda to kind of get their point of view across, especially Mark Collett. They came with an agenda to make certain points. Whereas I feel Jayda came with no particular agenda apart from just to have a chat, an open chat. And that was Dilly's approach as well. So it was no holes barred. It was kind of no punches pulled, but respectful and honest. And I think obviously Jayda has come a long way. She's changed a lot. She's no longer the Jayda of the mosque invasions, of Britain First, of Paul Golding. And I personally believe that she might not be too far from Islam. I mean, obviously, if you asked her this question, she would say, no, that's never going to happen. But just, I think if you watch the whole 3 hours, I think the impression of a lot of Muslims is that this woman could be very close to Islam. If she finds the right company, she could be very, very close to Islam. I found her quite, obviously she said some very offensive things, and she said some things that Muslims would find very objectionable. So I'm not trying to hold her up on any pedestal. I'm not trying to endorse any of her opinions, etc. But it was proper interfaith. You see these fake interfaith things happening, where you have these Zionists and these coconut Muslims, and, kind of meeting together and this fake tea and biscuits, avoiding all the incendiary topics. That is not real interfaith. It's fake interfaith. This was real interfaith. And I think it's worth watching. I think over 130,000 people have already watched it. And I think this is a podcast that deserves like 500,000 views at least.
Yeah, it is an interesting chat, and I will watch it to the end. What I have seen is that it's just interesting for me because being English myself, I grew up and would have been very used to the environment of Jayda's, basically. Jayda, to be honest with you, even for quite a while, I've always thought that she reminded me of so many people that I knew growing up.
Yeah.
And I think that Jayda's the type of person who seems quite nice, to be honest with you, deep down. She seems like a good person, and she's a person of faith, person of genuine religion, belief. But obviously she's been on a bad path and has been guided by bad forces and has done some, as you say, very offensive, very upsetting and detestable things in the past. And I think that she still has problems with her ideology. But I just can't help but feel like there is common ground to be had with someone like Jayda, especially from my perspective, because I knew many UKIPers. I know how these people think and feel. I know the grievances they have, and deep down, even the most typical English pub geezer who says all these Islamophobic things, deep down, normally, they are actually good people with bottom line understandable issues, but it manifests and they get ideologically drawn into this nasty, vile, hateful ideology, which is nationalism and so on. But Islam is a cure for that. I could have been a Jayda or a Paul Golding. Do you know what I mean?
You look
Quite
like
frankly. I look like it. Could have been. There was a time where that was the weird thing with the Nick Griffin Dilly interview.
Yeah.
I saw like my past interacting with my present.
Right. Okay. Wow.
And that's what was weird for me, because there was a time where before, in my days of ignorance, I looked to Nick Griffin and thought that this was someone talking, representing me.
Yeah.
It was making sense. I was young, ideologically vulnerable. I didn't know who I was or what Britain was. And I looked at one point to Nick Griffin and thought, yeah, these BNP guys are like, oh yeah, they're representing me. Do you know what I mean? Like my people. But alhamdulillah, I was guided very quickly to the right path, which was Islam. And now I've been guided on and had a good, productive, wholesome life, and I'm very happy now. But Jayda just hasn't had that. Maybe she's having it now. I don't know. But honestly, I think Jayda should look. She seems like an honest person. Look at Islam again, and just see that there is benefit for you if you become a Muslim. It's as simple as that. It's within her interest to become a Muslim. And I say that as someone who is perhaps was where she was many years ago, but luckily I got out of it at a young age.
Yeah.
It's within her interests to.
Yeah, I don't see.
Islam.
I personally don't see. I mean, Allah knows best, and Allah can make anything happen. But I don't. I wouldn't put any money on Nick Griffin or Mark Collett or Jim Dowson becoming Muslim. Whereas Jayda, I wouldn't be surprised if in 5 years' time, she's wearing a burqa
in Afghanistan. Yeah,
but you know what? One thing I do want to say is that I find religious people interesting, And the fact is that Jayda Fransen, whatever she said about Islam in the past, she is someone who submits to Allah. You know, she submits to God and she worships God. Now, I would prefer to interact with a person in that, no matter, you know, even if they might have problematic views elsewhere. I even respect a person like that more than an atheist who says good things about Palestine.
Yeah.
Because an atheist is someone who's committed the worst sin. They've rejected God. You know, they have rejected God.
Yeah.
And that is the worst arrogance. And there is a man I have in mind. His initials are JC, who falls into that category. But we won't mention him today.
We may as well. We mention him in every other episode.
Viewers can guess who I'm
But
thinking about.
he likes courgettes, and I know that. But basically, yeah. Look, at the end of the day, I think that sometimes because of left-wing politics and how Muslims are often identified with left-wing politics, they look to the right as this enemy which needs to be defeated. You know, and they'll never ever interact with the right, and they'll just look at them as an enemy and constantly be in a state of combat and shouting at them and screaming at them and, you know, all that type of stuff. I think what's happening here is very unique because there is room for dawah with everyone.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would have given dawah to all types of people in order to bring them, including the enemies of Islam.
Of course.
Do you know what I mean?
Who became great Muslims.
Who became great
Khalid
Muslims.
ibn al-Walid and many others.
Absolutely. So I think, given how important dawah is and how I understand dawah as being so important now, we have to remind ourselves of this as Muslims. Let's not get suckered in to Western political spheres where we'll never talk to the other side. We're Muslims, okay? We find common ground with lefties sometimes, but there's actually common ground with the right wing on some issues too, social issues, for example. So let's not cut the right off and say we can never talk to these people, because actually there's probably more room for right wingers to become future Muslims than there is with the left,
Quite
who
possibly,
are getting suckered into this woke.
The only
rainbow
line I would
position.
draw, I mean, as the editor of Five Pillars, the only line I would draw is maybe having a cozy chat with someone who's literally trying to kill you, or like a Zionist, for example, who literally believes in the elimination of your people.
Yes.
Now, Jayda just believes in the deportation of our people. but yeah, she doesn't want to kill us, just deport us.
And it's a very interesting phenomenon to see how pro-Palestine she is. Interestingly enough, that was one of the reasons they ended up, I think, bringing that. I
think. Sorry, I'm going on quite a lot about this, but there's a few things I did notice about her interview. I do find her position illogical and somewhat racist as well, in the terms that, you know, she believes in a white British future. And she wants good relations with the Muslim world, but she wants us to be in our part of the world. Now, I kind of get that. I'm not saying I totally agree with it, but I kind of get that. But at the same time, she would say that a white atheist is more her tribe than a brown God-fearing Muslim. Now, I don't get that. I find that racist and illogical as well.
Self-defeating as well. Self-defeating.
Also, people like Jayda, they're very into the Bible and they're biblical Christians, which is probably true Christians, but the Bible itself is so full of contradictions. And was written by so many people hundreds of years after Jesus died. It's not something that you can bet your life on. You know, it's not the word of God. It's a false religion. So her position is illogical. Whereas Islam, we can prove this is the word of God. You know, it was the revealed, uncreated word of God, and we can have an intellectual debate with anybody on that issue. Christians can't even do that. They have to admit that that it was written by people. They say inspired by God hundreds of years afterwards. Yes, there might be some inaccuracies. Well, I tell you what, if there was one inaccuracy in the Quran, I would abandon Islam because it's not worth following because it's an inaccuracy. But we know fully well that Islam is perfect and the Quran is perfect.
It's going to turn into a very long discussion, this, because I've got something to say as well now, very quickly. The fact is that Christianity is changed so much over the years, the centuries, in fact. There were times when the majority Christian view was that Jesus was a prophet, and the understanding of what Jesus and the Trinity and all this stuff has changed tremendously. The concept of Trinity that exists today with many Christians has nothing to do with the origins of Christianity.
It's an innovation.
You know, it's an innovation, and the number of types of Bibles that exist and the manipulation of the text especially as it's jumped from one language to another. The dispute between Protestantism and Catholicism, as well as the Orthodox and the Eastern and Western Church, it's created such a quagmire and a mess that, yeah, pinning your name to the flag of Christianity is just very shaky, slippery ground. If you really want to go to the pearly gates one day and, you know, say, well, I'm a Christian, let me in, I think that there is if you're going to gamble on Christianity, you're going to find that it's a bad hand to have. But the fact of the matter is that I've never felt closer to the teachings of Jesus, peace be upon him, until after I became a Muslim. Like, even if you look at how Jesus prayed and practiced religion in the Bible, it's fantastically similar to Islam. He just looks, sounds, if it walks like a Muslim, sounds like a Muslim, preaches like a Muslim, it's a Muslim. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think that many Christians in Africa are starting to pick up on this fact, because they learned about Jesus through colonialism, European colonialism, through Christianity. But now, these days, there's a lot of dawah work going to places like...
IERA doing great work.
IERA doing great work, yeah. I've heard from a certain source that IERA has been going to parts of Africa, and they're finding that many are embracing Islam based on the fact that they've just shown them, look, Jesus was a Muslim. Here's the proof in the Bible. Look at how Muslims pray today. Look how Jesus prays in the Bible. And they go, do you know what? You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So sorry to go off on a tangent here, but I think, Jayda, it's within your interests to look at Islam again and just ask the question, should I be a Muslim, basically? I think the answer is yes. But anyway, let's see. Let's see how that goes. I think the last thing I wanted to talk about was the student protests. I think it would be awkward if we didn't mention this, because it's springing up everywhere. LSE have joined on it now. There's another one, UCL. UCL, is that right? They've also jumped. So London has finally caught up with the rest of the country and are joining the campus encampment protests, which are fantastic. We intend to join several more, but there's a big one in Birmingham, big one in Leeds. They're all over the place.
If I say something negative, can you say something positive just to end the show?
I'm
like, you know, I was very critical. Even last show, I was like, where are the students? You know, what have they been doing? It's taken them 7 months of genocide to get around to this. That's my negative comment. You go on a positive comment.
Well, to be honest with you, I actually have something to say, which was echoing your earlier point from last show. The Islamic student societies, I think, have been very slow to the game. And I think that that's quite shameful. I think that from what I've seen from the encampments that I've visited, and I've visited a couple now, they're very left-wing, socialist-led movements. And that's fine. You know, obviously the Palestinian cause needs all the help it can get. But where are the Islamic student societies? I think they're starting to wake up now, from what I've heard. I've been told they've been given a kick up the backside, but I'm sorry, but there's no time for cowardice. What are you doing? Get out there. The Palestinian cause is an Islamic cause too. Why are you not?
I don't know.
This should have been their idea. They should have come up with this idea, made a little Muslim prayer encampment or something, you know?
Well, I suppose better late than never, but I mean, I don't know. I've heard sometimes, you know, the university student population is a very transient population. A lot of the Muslim students might be foreigners, you know, for instance, and they might be going home, and then, you know, they stay for 3 years and they leave. So there's no kind of continuity in there. I'm having husna done here for them a little bit. I'm making excuses, but it's actually quite difficult to make too many excuses. I mean, alhamdulillah, we do know that they're involved in these protests. We've been contacted by many Muslims asking us to cover encampments around the country, and we are doing our best with our meager resources. But I do have this feeling like, you know, it should have happened 6 months ago.
It's happening now, and the numbers look pretty good. It's happened at so many universities that it is creating a real upset. And I think in some cases, like in Birmingham, the university is actually being a bit nasty and has been kind of threatening, trying anything it can to try and get rid of them. So I think the important thing is to use stamina on this. I think this is a story which requires stamina. You have to keep going with it and keep the numbers up, keep the encampments going, because now you're starting to see people getting so wound up by it that there's actually a bit of a pro-Israel hit back. They're actually going and harassing some of these students and creating little viral videos. So I think keep going. Keep up with it, try and boost the numbers, and coming up with unique ways, maybe inviting members of the general public to come and provide support. They'll probably give you free food and extra tents and blankets or whatever you need. It's getting hotter now. But yeah, I think let's keep going, especially while it's still going on in the States, because this is now an international movement, and it seems to be pressuring. Some universities are actually backing down, it seems. I've seen headlines where they're actually pulling away their links to Israel and things like that. So there is room for it to win, I think. Well, I think that it's been a very full show, so let's end it where it is. But thank you very much, Roshan, and thank you everyone at home for watching as well. We will be back again next week, as long as Roshan's health maintains. It's a bit dicky these days, but hopefully he will be back in action next week, and we can continue with our episodes as we always usually do. Well, thank you very much for tuning in. Please like, share, and subscribe. It helps the channel immensely. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa salama for now.